The story begins in British Columbia, where we are introduced to a married couple, Ted Evans and his wife, Sarah Evans, as they travel home. It's clear that something dark from their past still hangs over their lives. 5 years earlier, Ted was involved in a tragic car crash. At the time, he was under the influence and collided with another vehicle carrying a family. Only one man survived, the father, while the rest of his family did not make it. This incident completely shattered Ted. Although he served time in prison, his real punishment was psychological. He became trapped in guilt, slowly developing self-hatred and emotional instability. Even after completing his 5-year sentence and receiving treatment, Ted is unable to erase the memory of that night. The regret never leaves him. Just when his release date is near, things take an even darker turn. Ted receives a message from McGrath, the very man who survived the crash, the one who lost his entire family because of Ted's actions. He tells Ted that he is about to be free, but only if he follows one rule. Because of Ted, he has lost everyone. To keep his family safe, Ted must live alone like him. Ted's family will stay safe, but Ted can never meet or contact them. If he breaks this rule, they will not survive. He says he does not want to hurt anyone, but Ted must not force him. This rule applies to everyone. If Ted tries to form any relationship, that person will also be in danger. If Ted follows the rules, no one will be harmed. These words leave Ted living in fear and guilt. Later, while returning home with his wife Sarah, who stops for coffee while their children wait, Ted calls his doctor's clinic to reschedule his appointment. The receptionist tells him the doctor has been missing for 2 days. This shocks Ted and reminds him of the day in prison when he received McGrath's message through another prisoner. Fear completely takes over Ted. He believes he had formed a connection with Dr. Fry, and McGrath had warned him that if Ted built any relationship, that person would be harmed. So Ted becomes sure that McGrath is responsible for the doctor's disappearance. Worried about his family, Ted makes a painful decision. Without telling Sarah, he leaves the car and walks into the forest. Even though it breaks him emotionally, he forces himself to live alone in an abandoned cabin, exactly as McGrath demanded. Near the lake, Ted often sees a boat and a man watching his cabin. If Ted is right, this man can only be McGrath. Ted avoids all contact with people. To fight loneliness, he adopts a puppy. He has no phone, internet, TV, or car. One day, he goes to the market only to buy dog food. A friendly cashier tries to talk and befriend him, but Ted refuses to engage. When she keeps talking, Ted loses control, shouts at her, grabs the dog food, and leaves. The woman reports the incident to the police. While Ted is still on the road, a police officer named Cole stops him after receiving the complaint. Ted tries to explain that he did nothing wrong, but Cole calmly tells him that the police station is just nearby. Ted agrees to go to the police station, saying it will only take a short time. He even gives a false name, but goes along to avoid trouble. When officers check the records, they sense something is wrong. Officer Cole becomes rude, but Chief Sanders steps in and stops him. After reviewing all records, they discover who Ted really is and what he has done. Chief Sanders realizes Ted is under extreme stress and asks him to call his wife, Sarah, since she has already filed a missing report. Ted refuses, so Chief Sanders calls Sarah himself and explains everything. The scene shifts to Sarah. She feels relieved knowing Ted is alive and has been found by the police. She leaves her children with her mother and rushes to see Ted. The film's music and locations create a strong emotional mood, making the story more engaging. At the police station, Sarah meets Chief Sanders. But when Ted sees Sarah, he breaks down, shouting and crying. He does not want to meet her, fearing that if he does, McGrath will harm his family. Sarah doesn't force Ted. She says if he doesn't want to meet her, she'll leave. Outside, she tells Chief Sanders that Ted lives in fear of McGrath and truly believes meeting his family will put them in danger. Sanders struggles to understand how Ted could walk away from his family, but Sarah explains he is crushed by guilt and fear. Ted could have been released after 2 years, but stayed for 5, showing how damaged he was. Sanders decides to free him. Sarah thanks him, gives him an envelope for Ted, and leaves. Sanders returns and tells Ted he can go. While picking up his things, Ted notices a missing girl poster that feels familiar. Sanders quietly puts Sarah's envelope into Ted's bag. Ted heads back into the forest and reaches his cabin. Before entering, he loudly announces, "I didn't talk to my wife," hoping McGrath hears it. Inside the cabin, Ted notices his dog is gone. Then he finds the letters from his children that Chief Sanders placed in his bag. Reading them crushes him, and memories of his family make him cry. He wants to go back, but McGrath's threat still controls him. That night, a noise wakes him. When he gets up to check, someone attacks him, shocks him, and he blacks out. When Ted wakes, he's tied to the bed, and Sarah is sitting there. She is the one who knocked him out and tied him. Ted panics and begs her to leave, saying she's in danger. But Sarah tells him she won't go. She insists no one else is coming, and that Ted's fear of McGrath exists only in his mind. For Ted, everything still felt real. When Sarah said she needed something from the car, he begged her not to go outside. Seeing his fear, she told him to take a pill and promised she wouldn't leave that night. Ted took it and soon fell asleep. By morning, Sarah was still there, but now wanted to step outside. Ted again begged her not to go, but she reminded him her promise was only for last night. When she refused, Ted told her to take the gun from the drawer for safety. Sarah refused, because she believed McGrath didn't exist, and all this fear only lived in Ted's mind. The truth, however, would be revealed to the audience later. While walking through the forest toward her car, Sarah noticed a boat on the lake and also found an empty liquor bottle, making her think Ted was still drinking. Back at the cabin, Ted desperately tried to free himself, but failed. Sarah soon returned. Ted kept telling her McGrath was real, and she was in danger if she ignored his warnings. He even mentioned his missing dog, saying McGrath must have taken him too. When Sarah still refuses to accept Ted's fear, he tries to push her away by saying painful things, claiming he doesn't want her and accusing her of cheating. Sarah cries and says she regrets that mistake and knows he's only saying these things to make her leave. She refuses to go. They exchange harsh words, but Sarah still stays. Later, while searching for Ted's dog, she finds a camera attached to a tree near the cabin. Its purpose will be revealed later. Meanwhile, Chief Sanders becomes more invested in Ted's case. Feeling the family needs help, he carefully studies Ted's past file and prepares to investigate further. That night, Sarah hides a tracking device in Ted's shoe, fearing he might escape. While doing this, she hears a noise outside and goes out. She sees a wolf attacking Ted's dog, and Sarah quickly scares the wolf away. But by then, Ted's dog was already gone. The next morning, Sarah tells Ted that a wolf killed his dog. She explains that fear can make us believe things that aren't real, and sometimes we need someone else to help us see the truth. She then asks Ted what McGrath actually said to him. Ted explains that McGrath threatened to harm Sarah, the children, or anyone Ted tried to connect with. Sarah asks if Ted is sure McGrath really met him in jail. Ted says the message came through another prisoner, but he is certain it was McGrath. Sarah then shows him a letter sent by McGrath 6 months before Ted was released. This was McGrath's final letter to Ted. After that, he ended his life, Police never found his body, and his boat was missing, so they assumed he ended his life in the sea. But Ted refuses to believe it. He thinks McGrath faked everything to hide from the police and keep watching him. Ted tells Sarah that if he convinces her she's in danger, she must leave. Sarah agrees. Ted then explains the camera outside. He says he noticed it 3 months ago, but never touched it because he didn't want whoever placed it to know he was aware of it. Ted says that if they remove the camera, they might learn what happened to his dog. Sarah agrees. Ted asks her to untie him so he can show her the camera, but she refuses because she already saw it earlier and knows where it is. When Sarah goes outside to remove the camera, Ted manages to slip free and runs away. Sarah's phone picks up the tracker she hid in his shoe, and she realizes he's escaping. She quickly follows him and tells him to come back. Sarah tells Ted they need him, but Ted believes staying with them will put everyone in danger. He pulls out a gun and says he loves Sarah and the children, and everything harsh he said earlier was a lie meant to protect them. Then he fires. But the gun is empty. Sarah had removed the bullets because she knew Ted wasn't mentally stable. She uses a taser to knock him out and drags him back to the cabin. Meanwhile, at the police station, Chief Sanders remembers how Ted stared at the missing girl poster. He checks the CCTV footage from that day, and his suspicion grows. He now believes Ted may be connected to the missing girl's case. Back at the cabin, Ted wakes up tied again. Sarah is searching the house for alcohol bottles. Ted tries to explain he stopped drinking after the accident. Sarah had seen the empty liquor bottle in the forest, so she believes Ted is lying about quitting alcohol. Feeling hopeless, she calls her mother and cries that she can't handle this anymore. Her mother gently tells her that she has already tried her best, and maybe she should return home for the children. They need her too. Sarah begins to consider it. Inside, she talks to Ted and tells him neither of them truly knows if McGrath is alive, but Ted decided on his own to leave his family. He abandoned them, and that was his choice. Both of them end up crying, but Ted still insists he is keeping them safe. To prove Ted wrong, Sarah makes a dangerous decision. She will stay outside the cabin all night. If McGrath is alive, he will attack her. If nothing happens, Ted must accept that the danger exists only in his mind. Ted begs her not to do this, but she refuses to come inside. Meanwhile, Chief Sanders goes to investigate the missing girl. She turns out to be a prostitute, and he learns Ted had met her before. Sanders' suspicion grows stronger, and he begins digging deeper into the case. The next morning, Sarah is shown asleep outside, completely unharmed. No one attacked her. Later, she checks the camera she removed the night before. In the rush, the device had broken, so she begins repairing it. When Sarah checks the repaired camera, she is shocked by the footage. She discovers Ted himself had installed the camera. When she confronts him, Ted admits it. He says he wanted to catch McGrath on video. Sarah tells him that after all this time, the camera never showed anything. Yet, he is still afraid. Ted cries and says he can't stop this fear until he is completely sure. Sarah finally feels sympathy for him, and both of them grow closer again. That night, Sarah's mother calls, and Sarah says she might bring Ted home tomorrow because he seems to be improving. Meanwhile, Chief Sanders goes to find the missing girl. She is now working in a bar under a new identity. She tells Sanders that Ted asked her to stay with him for a week and even offered money. He never forced her or hurt her, but he behaved strangely, so she left after 4 days. Back at the cabin, Sarah and Ted talk peacefully. Sarah is happy that Ted finally agrees to come home with her, and it seems like he is slowly getting better. Sarah notices her phone battery is dead and says she needs a spare battery from the car. Ted offers to get it and heads toward the vehicle. At the same time, Chief Sanders calls Officer Cole and says he has learned something new. Ted's story isn't what it seemed. While Ted is gone, Sarah walks through the cabin and feels something odd under the floor. She lifts the carpet and finds a hidden door leading to a secret basement. Meanwhile, inside the car, Ted starts remembering everything from the night of the drunk driving accident. He also spots someone walking toward the cabin and immediately thinks it might be McGrath, so he runs after the figure. Down in the secret basement, Sarah discovers a cage, a bed, and items belonging to different women. She instantly realizes something terrible happened here and panics. She rushes out of the basement. Chief Sanders is also worried. After learning Sarah is with Ted and unable to reach her because her phone is off, he fears Ted might harm her. Terrified, Sarah loads bullets into the gun and hides behind the bed. At that moment, Ted enters the cabin. Because it's dark, he accidentally falls straight into the basement, injuring himself. Sarah, crying, asks Ted for the car keys. She says she doesn't want to know what he was doing in the basement. She just wants to leave. Ted says she can go, but asks her to listen first. He explains that he planned everything to escape McGrath. He hired a girl, so McGrath would see them together. Ted believed McGrath would try to harm her, and Ted could catch him in the act. The girl realized Ted's plan, thought he was unstable, and ran away to a new place under a different name. To Sarah, this all sounds like delusion. She only wants to get out. Ted finally gives her the keys and tells her to be careful because he saw someone outside. Sarah tells him to take care, then leaves. At the car, Sarah breaks down, crying. Just then, Cole arrives and asks about Ted. Sarah says Ted only wants to be alone and is a danger only to himself, not others. But when Cole keeps questioning, she gives him the wrong location of the cabin. She also mentions Ted is injured and needs help. Cole leaves to check that false location. The moment he leaves, Sarah realizes she can't abandon Ted. She runs back toward the cabin. On the way, she hears movement around her, like someone is following her. Sarah, scared, pulls out the gun and fires. Ted hears the shot and panics, thinking McGrath has found her. But it wasn't a man at all. Sarah had shot the same wolf she saw earlier. When she returns, her clothes have blood on them, and Ted immediately fears the worst. Sarah lies and says she killed McGrath when he tried to attack her. She apologizes for not believing him before. Sarah does this to break Ted out of his delusion, and her plan works. She takes him to the water and says she shot McGrath and his body fell into the lake, so it would be impossible to find the remains. Ted finally believes McGrath is dead and feels free for the first time. In the final scenes, Ted returns home to his family, happy and peaceful. But Sarah's eyes fall on a man in a boat watching them. This isn't a real threat. It represents her own guilt about lying to Ted and the moment she deceived him. The film's theme is built entirely on fear and guilt, showing how the mind can create danger even when it doesn't exist.